Hope you enjoyed the win over Geelong, everybody. It was good to see some encouraging signs for the season ahead amongst the development of some of our young players. Well, in this video, I wanted to stay away from some of the more obvious good players from the match. We all know Isaac Kako had a fantastic game and he was sort of the talk of the match with his 4 goals. And, of course, Nick Martin with the 2 goals and players like that. Merritt also played very well, obviously. I wanted to have a look at some of the players that may have been a bit unheralded, maybe that you didn't notice. So I want to get into that in this video. So these are in no particular order, but I'm going to start off with Nick Bryan because I wanted to give a bit of love for Nick Bryan because he hasn't been talked about that much. I can't remember too many people bringing him up in this match, but he did pretty well, amassing a champion data score of 85 points, which is pretty good for him. He had 17 possessions. Remember, he did not start in the first quarter. Draper started in the ruck. I believe Nick Bryan may have been on the bench in the first quarter, and yet he amassed for the match 17 possessions, 9 marks, 4 inside 50s. He kicked a goal himself, and importantly, and this is the bit I like, he had 6 score involvements. So this is encouraging for the season ahead, given that Brad Scott will likely want to go with the 2 ruck option, and if one of them gets injured, there is someone like Goldstein to potentially come into the side. I don't think he'll be playing too many matches, but with injuries, you just never know. But this seemed to work pretty well. How it works during the year, how much time Draper spends forward, I don't really see Nick Bryan as a forward. But to have 6 score involvements and 17 possessions in basically only 66 minutes of game time or thereabouts was really a pretty encouraging performance. And not many people have been talking about him. I just thought I'd give him a bit of love. I thought his game was very, very underrated. What did you guys think in the comments? Let me know. If you like this channel and you like the content I'm providing, please hit the like button and also the subscribe button. It really helps the YouTube algorithm if you hit the like button, and you'll get these kind of videos recommended on your feed more often, which helps out you, of course, and of course it helps out me as well. So please consider subscribing. I got to 500 subscribers. I'm only a new channel with my last video, so that was really good. It was ahead of when I thought I would do it. So if you could continue to like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. I would really, really appreciate it. So the next player who was a bit unheralded, I'm going to say, is Ben Hobbs. Now, whilst he was listed amongst our best players, he wasn't talked about that much. He's the type of player that can amass quite a bit of the ball, and did amass quite a bit of the ball in quite an unassuming way. He actually had 29 possessions, which was very impressive. He does need to work on his kicking a little bit. He did have a couple of clangers. But importantly, and this is the stat I like, he had 8 tackles. He's a nuggety little player, a bit of an in and under player. And I like the look of him. And if he can ascend to the type of player that can have 25 to 30 possessions a game, it's just like an extra midfielder for us. That's what we need. We know Elijah Sartis will likely ascend to being that type of player. If Hobbs can reach that level as well, that will help greatly in our improvement as a side. He had 12 contested possessions. He had 6 clearances, and he also had 4 score involvements. So whilst everybody was focusing on Isaac Kako, and fair enough, and Elijah Sartis, Ben Hobbs was actually our second leading possession winner for the night, just behind Elijah Sartis, who had 31. So isn't that fantastic to see Ben Hobbs and Elijah Sartis as our 2 leading possession winners? Not Merritt and Martin and Caldwell and those sort of players, but Elijah Sartis and Hobbs. So a bit of love for Ben Hobbs. I thought he had a very underrated game. Didn't go unnoticed from me. What did you guys think of Ben Hobbs' game last night? The next player who I thought had an underrated game was Jade Gresham, and this was perhaps got a bit lost in the wash because of Isaac Kako's 4 goals. Everyone was obviously very excited about that, but Jade Gresham amassed 16 possessions, had 4 tackles, kicked 2 goals himself. He had 8 contested possessions, and he had 5 score involvements. So what I'll be looking at from Jade Gresham this year really is things like forward pressure. And given that we have now 2 small forwards down there, it actually will perhaps create some more opportunities for a player like Gresham to have even a better season than what he did last year. He actually started off last season pretty well and faded a little bit as the season went on. But I thought he was a very, very effective player for us. He had 3 inside 50s, he had a clearance, and he created a bit of havoc down there. You would have noticed a couple of goals. He kicked a very nice check side goal, which was a very impressive kick. We did kick very accurately last night. Please don't expect that every week, guys. It's not going to happen. But Gresham's forward pressure was very, very good. Interestingly, he had 98 champion data points, which ranked him as the 4th best player on the ground. not just the fourth best player for Essendon, but the fourth best player of all 46 players that competed in the match. So really, that's very, very impressive. He actually had a marginally superior statistical game, if you use the champion data scores, than Kako himself. And yet very few people talked about Gresham's game. Well, it wasn't lost on me. What did you guys think? I loved Gresham's game. And if we can see more of that during the year, it will augur well for an improved Essendon performance in 2025. Fourth, I've got Harry Jones. Now, once again, these are in no particular order, but I thought Harry Jones's game was fantastic. It might surprise you guys to know that Harry Jones actually had 27 possessions. I didn't notice that particularly until the match ended, and I had a bit of a look at the stats, but he had 27 possessions, 12 marks, 6 contested possessions, and he had 7 score involvements. It looks like he's going to play as a bit of a mobile wingman. I think Brad Scott is trying to at least replicate, or at least partially replicate, what the role that Mark Blixavs was playing for Geelong. I'm not talking about in this match in particular, but I'm talking generally over the years. That's the role that Blixavs has had, this sort of mobile wing type player. Well, he can really play anywhere, go into the middle. Now, I don't think Harrison Jones is quite as mobile as someone like Blixavs. But during the match, he was able to push forward a couple of times. You would have noticed in the third quarter, he was able to get a couple of marks inside 50. He hit the post on one of them, and another one he passed off. But on both of those, he was around 40, 45 metres out. So he had a chance to get 2 goals. That would have really topped his game off. So this is an interesting role for him playing on the wing. I've looked at Harrison Jones over the last couple of years as a player that's kind of fighting for a position. He's kind of a tall player, started off as a forward, but there's not really space for him in a bit of a congested forward line at the moment. I think you'll probably see him over the course of the season, if he's going to play as a mobile wingman, to try to push forward as often as he can, to try to at least exploit the other wingman and to try to get into space, which you saw him do a couple of times in the match. And I think he will continue to do that. The sort of wingman who can sort of push forward and get those inside 50 shots a few times a game as well. So this role was hit and miss last year, but I'll tell you what, given his fitness and the fact that he's such a mobile player, if he can replicate the sort of form he had last night, 27 possessions, 12 marks, 7 score involvements and 6 contested possessions, that was a terrific game from Harrison Jones, and we might have just found a position for him. Let's hope so. I thought it was a very, very underrated game. It didn't go unnoticed from me. Next up, remember in no particular order, I've got Jordan Ridley. Now, whilst Jordan Ridley might be obviously our best defender, he actually had a sneaky good game, which is pretty good. He's had a pretty good off-season, punctured a little bit by the minor hamstring injury, but he was all fit and firing yesterday. He had 104 champion data points, which ranked him as the second best player on the entire ground when you count both teams. He had 20 possessions, 7 marks, 7 rebound 50s, and 2 score involvements. One thing about his game, despite his class for a couple of years now, he's often been the type of player willing to sort of go sideways with the ball. He was much more proactive, I thought, in the game against Geelong, quick to move the ball forward. And this is good. And I think if Zach Reid can hold up one of the other key positions with Ben Mackay, it really frees up Jordan Ridley as that rebounding defender, the one who can read the play down there. And he had a sneaky good game. You sort of expect Ridley to have a good game, but I don't think people realise just how effective he was yesterday. Second best player on the ground. And I liked his attacking, forward-thinking play. I thought it was very, very proactive. And let's hope he can have a good run with injury this year. What did you guys think of Jordan Ridley's game? Last up, I've got Kyle Langford, the versatile, ever-reliable Kyle Langford, who had 17 possessions, 8 marks, 5 tackles, and 7 score involvements. He didn't spend the entire game in the forward line. He did push up the ground at various times. You would have noticed sometimes last year, actually ended up in defence from time to time. You will see that with this team. You'll see players push up and back down the ground. That's the way Brad Scott likes to do it. He had 102 Supercoach points, which was the third highest amount on the ground when you include both teams. And importantly, he was the only Essendon player that didn't have a clanger who had more than 10 possessions. Every other player who had double-figure possessions had at least one clanger, sometimes more. He was the only player that didn't have a clanger, and that's exactly what we want from Kyle Langford. I thought he had a sneaky good game. So there you have it. There's 6 players that I've noted who went a little bit under the radar, in my opinion. amongst all the Kako hype yesterday. What did you guys think? Please like and subscribe to this channel. It would help me out a lot if you would do that. As I've stated, it really does help the YouTube algorithm, so I'd much appreciate it. And it will ensure that the videos get recommended on your YouTube feed. So until next time, have a great day. And as always, go Bombers.